They stole the wrong Apache woman. By sunrise, a legendary gunslinger was already at the fence. In the distance, the rugged hills rose sharply, shadowed and mysterious, the perfect hiding place for both men and animals alike. In these lands, life was hard and danger could appear without warning. For some, the desert was a place of opportunity. For others, it was a place of survival. A group of men rode swiftly across the open plain, kicking up clouds of dust behind them. Silas Green, the leader, had a sharp face with eyes that never seemed to rest. He was a man who had learned early that fear could be turned into profit, and he had no hesitation about taking what he wanted. He and his small gang had heard stories of an Apache woman who was said to carry knowledge of a hidden treasure passed down through generations. They did not care for the dangers that came with crossing into Apache lands. The promise of riches blinded them. The men laughed and shouted as they approached a small, isolated settlement, thinking the night would end with easy success. Inside the settlement, a quiet calm hung in the air. Most of the settlers had gone to bed after another long day of tending cattle and repairing fences. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke from small hearth fires. Among them was Nayeli, a young Apache woman known for her bravery and intelligence. She had grown up learning the ways of her people, tracking, survival, and the skills needed to navigate the harsh land that was her home. Unlike many, she did not fear danger because she had faced it before and survived. As the outlaws entered the settlement, they moved quickly, breaking into homes and seizing anyone they believed to be valuable. Nayeli, quiet but alert, realized immediately what was happening. Before she could react, a rough hand grabbed her arm and she was pulled into the night. The men had made a terrible mistake. They thought they had taken the woman who would lead them to treasure, but Nayeli was not who they expected. They had no idea that they had kidnapped a skilled warrior whose courage could rival any man's. The ride away from the settlement was tense. Nayeli stayed calm, studying her captors carefully. She noticed everything: their horses, the way they held their weapons, their weaknesses. Though bound and forced to ride, her mind was sharp, already forming plans. The outlaws, thinking their prize was secure, laughed and boasted, unaware that their actions had awakened a storm they could not control. Far to the north, in the quiet hills beyond the open plains, Elia's Iron Hand McCree was preparing for the day. Known across the territory as a legendary gunslinger, he had earned his reputation through countless encounters where skill and courage had been the difference between life and death. But despite his fearsome name, McCree preferred solitude. He lived quietly, tending to his small ranch and keeping to himself, far from the chaos that often consumed the towns and settlements. That morning, a rider arrived, bringing word of Nayeli's kidnapping. The man's horse was exhausted and his face was pale with fear. McCree listened carefully as the messenger told the story. He did not ask questions. He did not hesitate. He saddled his horse, checking his weapons with meticulous care. Each move was precise, deliberate. He mounted and rode toward the outlaws' last known location, his dark eyes scanning the horizon. By the time the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the desert, McCree was already approaching the camp where the men held Nayeli. As he rode, the story alternated between the captors and their captive. Nayeli remained calm, her mind working as she observed the terrain and the outlaws' behavior. She could see that their confidence was their weakness. They believed they were untouchable because they had taken someone they thought could be controlled easily. Nayeli's thoughts were sharp and quick. She began looking for opportunities, small mistakes the men made that could give her a chance to escape. Meanwhile, McCree's approach was steady and almost ghost-like. He moved with a purpose that was both calm and terrifying. Every hoofbeat was measured, every glance purposeful. He did not need to rush. The outlaw's own mistakes would give him the advantage. He had faced men like them before, greedy, arrogant, and overconfident, and he knew that their downfall often came from their inability to understand what they were up against. The camp came into view. A simple fence surrounded a small group of tents, and guards moved back and forth, unaware of the approaching threat. The outlaws were busy, joking and sharing stories of what they would do with the treasure they believed they were about to claim. Naeli listened to them, learning the layout of the camp, memorizing where each man would be at different times, noting the gaps in their defenses. McCree stopped his horse at the edge of a hill, studying the camp silently. The rising sun cast long, thin shadows across the ground, giving him a perfect view. He did not act rashly. He waited patient, calculating. He had learned that speed and force alone could not win every battle. Sometimes it was the calm before the storm, the careful observation, that made the difference between victory and defeat. Naeli, sensing a shift in the air, paused in her own planning. She felt a presence she could not yet see, a calm energy that promised both protection and danger. Her instincts, honed by years of survival, told her that help was coming, though she did not know from where. She prepared herself for what she might need to do, ready to seize any opportunity. The outlaws, completely unaware, continued with their careless celebrations. They had no idea that they were on the edge of disaster. The sun rose higher and the air grew warmer. Dust swirled around the fences, catching the light and making the camp appear even more isolated. From the hill, McCree watched quietly. He noted each movement, each conversation, each mistake the men made. His hand rested near his gun, ready, but he did not move yet. Time stretched in the morning light. Every detail mattered: the way a guard shifted his weight, the angle of a tent flap, the position of a horse. McCree's mind worked quickly, forming a plan that relied on precision and timing rather than brute force. He had faced impossible odds before and survived. He knew how to turn mistakes into opportunities, how to exploit weakness without exposing himself to unnecessary danger. As the morning grew brighter, Naeli's courage and resourcefulness became clear. She had begun signaling subtly to McCree, though he could not yet see it. A small movement, a look, a shift in position. These were her ways of testing the waters, preparing for a moment when she could act. Her spirit was unbroken. She would not be taken without a fight. She had survived worse situations and knew that patience was a weapon as powerful as any gun. By the time the sun fully rose above the hills, McCree made his move. He did not rush blindly into the camp. Instead, he approached the fence with silent precision, his horse steady beneath him. The outlaws were still unaware, laughing and arguing over their plans. Naeli felt a change in the air, a quiet power that seemed to sweep over the camp. She knew that whatever came next, it would change everything. The stage was set. By sunrise, the legendary gunslinger was at the fence, ready to act. The outlaws' arrogance had brought them to this moment, and their fate was now in the hands of a man who had faced countless dangers and lived to tell the tale. Naeli, calm but alert, prepared to play her part in what was about to unfold. The desert held its breath, waiting for the storm that was coming, and in that moment the world seemed to pause. The rising sun glinted off a gun's barrel, the wind whispered through the dry grass, and two figures, one a captive, one a legend, stood poised to turn the day into a story that would be remembered for years. The morning sun climbed higher, casting a sharp light over the outlaws' camp. Dust swirled gently in the warm breeze, making the tents seem almost alive as they flapped softly. The outlaws remained oblivious to the danger at the fence, busy with their own careless chatter and laughter. Silas Green, their leader, swaggered around, confident that no one could reach them in their isolated camp. But he had made a grave mistake. The legendary gunslinger, Elias Iron Hand McCree, was at the edge of the fence, calm, alert, and calculating every move before making it. McCree's eyes scanned the camp, noting every detail: the position of the guards, the way horses were tethered, and the men's careless routines. Every movement mattered. He had learned long ago that patience could be more deadly than speed. Slowly, he inched closer, his boots making barely a sound against the rocky ground. Each step brought him nearer to the chaos that was about to erupt, yet he moved as if time itself was under his control. Inside the camp, Naeli stayed poised, careful not to alert her captors. She had watched them for hours, memorizing every movement. She had also noticed subtle shifts in the dust, the faint sound of hooves on the distant plain. She knew help had arrived. Her instincts told her that the man approaching the fence was no ordinary figure. She had heard stories of a gunslinger whose aim was unmatched and whose calmness in danger was legendary. And now, she could feel that legend moving into the camp. The first guard walked past McCree, a rifle slung loosely over his shoulder. McCree's hand hovered near his own weapon. In one smooth motion, he disarmed the guard without drawing attention, letting him stumble to the ground quietly. Another guard, distracted by a conversation, turned just in time to see McCree's figure step from shadow into light. A single warning gesture, a glance, and the man froze, understanding instantly that he was facing someone far beyond his skill. Naeli saw the moment and felt a surge of hope. She shifted slightly, making a subtle signal to McCree. Though he could not see it clearly, he sensed her presence and her readiness. The connection between them was silent but strong, born of mutual understanding. Each knew that the moment to act was near. The camp erupted suddenly. McCree moved with incredible speed and precision, his movements almost invisible as he disabled another two guards before they could raise an alarm. Shouts rang out, and chaos began to spread through the camp. Horses neighed in panic, scattering in all directions. Tents shook as men ran, trying to find cover, but McCree was always one step ahead, his calm control dominating the confusion. Naeli seized the moment. Using the distraction, she freed herself from her bindings. Her hands were quick and steady, honed from years of survival and training. She crouched low, moving silently toward the edge of the camp, keeping herself hidden behind barrels and tents. Every step was careful, calculated, each movement measured to avoid detection. She was no longer a captive. She was a participant in the storm of action that had erupted. Silas Green, realizing the danger, tried to rally his men. His voice was sharp and commanding, but it carried little authority against the precision and calm of McCree. One by one, the outlaws were cornered, disarmed, or driven into confusion. McCree's reputation had preceded him, and even without a fight, fear took hold of the men. The skill and presence of the gunslinger were overwhelming, leaving the outlaws unsure of their next move. Naeli reached a low fence at the edge of the camp. She paused, scanning for any remaining threats. Seeing McCree moving with control and decisiveness, she felt a renewed strength. Together they were unstoppable. McCree's eyes met hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They were partners in this moment, united by courage and purpose. The remaining outlaws attempted a last desperate resistance. One man tried to flee on horseback, but McCree was faster. With a precise shot, he cut the reins, causing the horse to bolt in panic. Another man raised a knife, hoping to surprise McCree, but the gunslinger's reflexes were unmatched. In a single motion, he disarmed the man and sent him sprawling to the ground. Every action was measured, ensuring that no unnecessary harm came to anyone, but making it clear that resistance was futile. Naeli, seizing the advantage, moved closer to Silas Green. She confronted him with a calm yet fierce intensity. Her presence alone was enough to make him hesitate. He had underestimated her entirely, thinking she would be helpless. Now, facing a woman who was clever, brave, and resourceful, alongside a gunslinger whose skill was unmatched, he realized how badly he had miscalculated. McCree stepped forward, his eyes locked on Green. There was no anger in his gaze, only a steady, unyielding determination. He gave a single command, and the remaining outlaws surrendered, too fearful to continue the fight. The camp, which had moments before been filled with chaos, now fell silent except for the whinnying of unsettled horses and the soft rustle of the desert wind. Naeli stood beside McCree, her courage shining. She had survived, and she had contributed to the victory. The two shared a moment of quiet understanding, a bond formed in the heat of danger. McCree nodded slightly, acknowledging her bravery and skill. Naeli, in turn, respected the calm and precision of the gunslinger, recognizing that few could face such danger and emerge victorious with the same composure. The aftermath of the confrontation was clear. The outlaws were tied and secured, their arrogance completely shattered. McCree and Naeli worked together to ensure no one would escape, using both strength and strategy. The desert seemed to breathe around them, as if acknowledging the restoration of balance and justice. As they prepared to leave the camp, Naeli reflected on what had happened. She realized that bravery was not only about facing danger, but also about understanding it, observing it, and acting with intelligence. Her role in the morning's events had been vital, proving that courage and wisdom were powerful allies. McCree, meanwhile, reminded her of the importance of precision, patience, and timing. The combination of their skills had ensured that the outlaws paid for their mistake. Together, they rode toward the hills where Naeli's people awaited. The sun climbed high, casting a golden light over the rugged landscape. Every shadow, every rock, and every tree seemed alive with the story of the morning. Though the danger had passed, the experience left an indelible mark on both of them. They had faced risk, confronted arrogance, and emerged stronger. The journey back was quiet but not empty. Naeli and McCree moved with respect and understanding, neither speaking much but both aware of the unspoken bond between them. She thought of her tribe, the people who had taught her survival, honor, and courage. McCree considered the endless horizon, the land he had roamed, and the countless dangers he had faced. In that shared silence, they both recognized that legends were not only made by skill, but by the choices one made when faced with impossible odds. When they reached the edge of Naeli's territory, her tribe came into view. Faces filled with concern and relief greeted her. She had returned not as a victim,